Hey guys, Foxdrop here. Today we'll be doing a guide video on 3 different junglers that are low elo gods. As you might be able to guess from their description, all these champions are really good in lower elo, and I would highly recommend that you play them if you're looking to climb. As all 3 of these champions are very good in low elo, they all have similar aspects about them. Specifically that they're very simple and they're good at exploiting the mistakes from your opponents. However, having said that, I've also tried to choose 3 champions that fill 3 different archetypes. This way, the champions are diverse enough so that if you don't like playing one kind of playstyle, you should be able to choose a different one from this list, and hopefully at least one of these 3 champions should tickle your fancy. And in this video, we'll be taking a look at each 3 of these champions in moderate detail so that you can come out of this video and you can pick them up and you should be pretty good at them. If you do enjoy this video, by the way, do hit me up with some feedback in the comments, because I don't mind doing like a second version of this with different champions. I can do it for different roles as well. Just let me know down below if you liked it, but without any further ado, let's get on with the first champion for this list. So the first champion on this list will be a very obvious one, Amumu. If you're looking for a champion who can fill that tank role, who's good at winning team fights because he has a win button in his ultimate, or if you're looking for someone who's more well-rounded overall, or if you're looking to scratch that AP itch of yours, Amumu is a good choice. Amumu is a champion who's very focused around the use of his ultimate. If you can land a good Curse of the Sad Mummy, you'll win more or less every single team fight. And part of what makes him really strong in low elo is that most enemy players don't really play around the threat of his ultimate. So for example, if they see you coming in, they won't respect your engage, they won't split up as much. It makes it quite easy to get successful ultimates off. Outside of that, he's also not very punishing to play because he gets very tanky. So if you just want to farm up in the early game, or you find yourself falling behind in the early game, as long as you come out mid game, you're somewhat tanky, you'll be really useful still regardless. So the first thing you're going to need to know when you're picking up Amumu are your runes, masteries, and your skill order. The stuff you're seeing on the screen now is what you want to go with. It's pretty straightforward stuff here. This gives you a good balance between improving your early game with your jungle clears and also transitioning into that mid game when you're team fighting. For your item build, you want to do one of 2 major paths. Either you want to be very tanky. This is good if you're not too confident in your ability to actually make stuff happen on Amumu. You just want to be useful regardless. Or you can actually get more damage on Amumu as well, which works really well if you find yourself getting ahead in that early game, because Amumu with a few damage items puts out a crap ton of pain onto the enemy team. You can also do a little bit of a hybrid of these 2 as well, a little bit of damage while also being quite tanky too. To be honest, all I would suggest is that you're at least somewhat tanky while you're playing Amumu. Now moving on to how you actually want to play Amumu at the various stages of the game. In the early game, you'll mostly want to be focusing on farming. Amumu farms pretty well, he clears the jungle really fast, and also on top of that, he's not particularly strong in the 1v1s early on, especially against most of the meta junglers. So if you find the enemy jungler, chances are you won't win that fight, so just focusing on farming isn't too bad, because if you do hit that level 6, that's when you really kick off on Amumu. Basically, there's no pressure on you to do anything before level 6, but if you do find opportunities to gank, you can do that quite successfully as well. And once you do hit level 6, try and gank whenever your ultimate is up. It's such a powerful tool. If you use it on someone, you'll probably get a kill as long as your team's around. You don't want to have it wasting just sitting there gathering dust. But generally speaking, guys, if you're not sure about what to do on Amumu in the lane phase, just farm. When you hit level 6, gank somewhere. In the mid game, you want to mostly look for the small skirmishes when your ultimate is up again, but when your ultimate is down, don't force anything too hard. Amumu is significantly weaker, especially in grouped up fights when his ultimate is on cooldown. So play around your ultimate. If you land a 2 or 3 man ulti, you'll probably win the fight. So you can look to try and take things like Dragon with your team. You can even set up dives bot lane if you want to as well, but make sure you know where the enemy jungler is if you do that, because if you get counter ganked, that's going to be pretty bad for you. But outside of that, just farm, keep that going. And finally, moving into the late game, just group up with your team. If you see a good opportunity to initiate with your bandage toss, flash into the backline, and then ulti everyone down, take it. Basically, all you need to do in the late game is make sure you're not like off farming while your team is fighting, and then try and land a good ulti. That's really all you need to do. And moving on to the second jungler we'll be taking a look at today it is Xin Zhao. Apologies in advance, by the way, if I say this guy's name in such a way that triggers you. I always get a few angry comments about how I've pronounced this guy's name. But regardless of how you want to say his name, I definitely recommend that you play him. He's very strong for solo queue. Xin is a champion who's really solid in the early game. His early game pressure is great. His ganks are really strong. His 1v1 fights are really good as well. But he's also someone who transitions later on into someone who's quite good at diving the enemy carries. Kind of like a semi-assassin, but also just someone who's a real pain in the ass for the enemy carries to deal with. If you're someone who tries to win really hard in the early game, if you're someone who hates AD carries and squishies in general and you just want to wipe them off the map, Xin is your guy. Of all the 3 champions we'll be taking a look at today, I think Xin is by far the easiest one to play as well. Xin just literally has no mechanics about him. You can pretty much just close your eyes and just run around. You'll probably do useful stuff on Xin Zhao. For your masteries and your skill order guys, take things that look like this. This loadout focuses more on the damage side of things, but it complements his kit really nicely. Makes him really strong. For your item build, I'd recommend going quite squishy on Xin for your first few items, but then transitioning to being a little bit tankier just so you don't blow up instantly if you jump into the team fight or if you make a mistake. When you're first learning Xin, it's not a bad idea to go for some tankier items early just so you kind of get a good grasp of him without instantly blowing up. But once you get more confident about what he can do, the damage he can put out, that kind of stuff, focus more on the damage in the early game so you can really play around Xin's playstyle and what he wants to do. And speaking of his playstyle and how you want to play him in the early game, like I mentioned, you want to be trying to do as much as you can. On Amumu, I recommended that you focus on farming above everything else and getting that level 6. On Xin, I think it's quite the opposite. You should be focusing on just running at enemy players and fighting them whenever you can. However, this does not mean that I recommend you should forego all of your jungle farm. Ultimately, jungle farm is what stops you from falling really far behind, so take some camps here or there. But yeah, mostly just focus on running down into lanes and just ganking the crap out of them. Try and aim for the lanes that have their summoners down as well, because they are so much easier for you to kill on Xin. Transitioning into the mid game, you want to do similar stuff while also keeping up your farm. You can farm a bit more here because you'll have some damage items, so you'll clear the jungle a lot faster. But you can also solo things like Dragon if you want to as well. But more or less, it's kind of similar to how you would play the early game. If you find yourself into some skirmishes, be careful about jumping in first because you'll be really squishy, you'll die really fast. Wait for a teammate to go in first if you can, and then just run to the back line and screw him over. And when it comes to the late game, you'll be fighting a lot more. So the advice I just gave is still pretty relevant. I really want to emphasize that if you jump in first on Xin, chances are you will die really fast. Try and make your teammate jump in first, wait for the enemy team to initiate onto you or something like that, and find that window of opportunity where you can get in onto the back line and do some damage. Outside of that, however, if you don't just want to be mindlessly team fighting, Xin's actually a really good split pusher later on. He's so good at split pushing because he pushes towers really fast, he pushes minion waves really fast, and he's also a really good 1v1 champion too. So chances are if they send someone to defend against you as Xin, they'll probably have to send more than one person or they won't be able to fully stop you. And if that happens, your team will be in an advantage, which is good. Before we move on to the last champion we'll be taking a look at today, just want to thank you for watching so far. If you are enjoying the video, do hit that cheeky thumbs up. You can subscribe to me for more LEGO Legends content, but most importantly, I really appreciate you guys checking out the video. Anyway, moving on to the last champion here, we'll be going for Ralphio himself, Warwick. I've been playing a lot of this guy on my main account. I think he's a really solid jungler, and Warwick feels that kind of tanky, unstoppable presence archetype. I don't really know the better way to describe it, but he's just like there, really tanky, really irritating to deal with because he's like impossible to kill but also destroys everyone. So if you like the tankier people, the initiators as well who can start fights, create picks, then Warwick is your boy. These are your runes masteries on skill order on Warwick. It seems quite offensive, but it does complement his kit quite nicely and you'll be building pretty much full tanks, so you won't be too squishy regardless. When you're playing in the early game on Warwick, I would focus more on farming than anything else. He can do some ganks. He's not too bad at doing that. However, he doesn't have a gap closer, so he has to rely on pretty much just walking up to someone, and that might mean they just walk away from you. I would say if you think you see something going down, go for it, but if not, just focus on the farming. What I like to personally do on Warwick is to try and farm in my first clear until I've got enough gold for a tier map. Tier map makes your whole overall jungle clears a lot quicker, which means you can put less time in the jungle, more time on the lanes. But like Amumu, he's a very good level 6 power spike champion. So if you don't find yourself doing too much before level 6, it's not a big deal. Just get your 6 as fast as possible. And again, whenever it's off cooldown, try and use it. In the mid game, you probably won't be too tanky, but you'll be getting there. So you can pretty much just do whatever it is you want to do. Like you can solo objectives if you want to, you can keep farming, you can gank and probably tower dive as well. You don't really take that much damage from towers when you ease up. Honestly, Warwick can just do whatever the hell he wants to do at this stage of the game. And as late game rolls around, you'll want to be the big, beefy presence in the middle of a team fight. Ideally, you don't want to use your ultimate on the front line from the enemy team. You'll want to save it for the squishies, for someone that you can lock down and focus down with your team. But as long as you're in the middle of the team fight soaking up damage, honestly, that's all you need to do. Warwick is honestly disgustingly tanky with the build that you go for, and when you're ease up, which gives you crazy damage reduction as well. You can afford to just run around in the middle of a team fight and then just heal up loads of damage as well. You're just incredibly disruptive when you're playing Warwick, and that's really all you need to do. So we're going to end the video here, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. Let me know what you thought about it down below in the comments. If you want to see like a sequel to this video, if you want to see different roles, or just any feedback that you have that maybe you didn't feel that this video touched upon that you would like to see more of in the future. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching the video, boys and girls. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you are having an amazing day, and I hope you continue to have an amazing day. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I will see you in my next video.